So we also want to look closely at how individuals behave within groups. Again, if we've all seen times and cases where it be, examples like with police officers or some dude who, all of a sudden gets very tough when he's around his crew. We've often seen people, behave very differently in the presence of groups. So we want to look at social scientifically some of the reasons why this happens and some studies that have been used to kind of illustrate these points more broadly. So Triplett in 1897-98, he did fishing reel studies and exactly what it sounds like to see. I'm not a fisherman myself, but in case any of you all have, want to see that do people catch more if there are people around, if there are other people, if they're by themselves. And by and large, people perform better on this task when there were more people around. Later studies show mixed results. Sometimes the presence of other people enhances others. Other times it would experience a decline. And you have to, again, be mindful about this for yourself in terms of like some people are very nervous with public speaking. Uh, I know I probably will generally perform better the more people there are. I still might be a little bit nervous and freaked out, but I generally will rise to the occasion. Some other task, um, I know when I was first learning to drive, I probably would perform better by myself than I would, particularly if my father was teaching me, because he was not the most patient instructor like his son. So I would perform that task oftentimes better by myself. So you have to be mindful about this for yourself in terms of what things do you do really well by yourself, which do you maybe perform better when there's a group. But there's been a lot of research that has shown this within human beings. There's a three-step, Zajonic identified a three-step process in identifying this influence between the presence of others on individual performance. Again, keep in mind what we're looking at here, Maisha, is how individual behavior is inhibited or enhanced by group dynamics. So as we see here, the research is constantly building off each other. That those Ojanic found some strong correlations between social facilitation in group and individual behavior. Tripp has been able to build upon some of this, and other scholars will continue to build upon it in new situations, particularly like when a lot of this research has been done using animals such as cockroaches, for example. Still important findings is, again, human beings are animals, but obviously our behavior is going to be a little bit different than cockroaches, quite clearly, most of our behaviors. Looking at these more deeply, we look at alternative explanations for social facilitation. We look at the mere presence. This is different from whether you're sized up by somebody that's evaluating you. And different yet when there's a distraction. The mere presence. This speaks to simply what it sounds like. Just simply having other people around impact or impede your behavior. So I'm using athletics again. There will people being in the, some people when they're practicing by themselves or a piano recital, that when you're practicing the piano, you may play beautifully, but when other people are around, you may not play quite as well. Or it could be the reverse. There are some people that do not perform well in practice at all, Ron. But when the lights are on, they actually perform very well. Evaluation apprehension. So it's one thing if, you're in high school and you're running and some of your classmates are attending the Massacre. It's quite another thing if the coach for, the University of Texas is in the crowd and thinking about getting you a scholarship. So there may be like, again, you may perform like, great normally, but like, oh my God, this person's evaluating, this evaluation like really means a lot. So practicing my, dissertation, for my girlfriend at the time was one thing. Getting in front of the committee that was actually going to judge whether or not I became Dr. Muhammad or not was a very different matter. And then finally, distraction conflict is just only with those others who distract from the task and to create attentional conflict. So as athletes, oftentimes the people in the stands, as much as, people may be wilding out and yelling and screaming and trying to distract you, a lot of times those people are almost invisible. They may not distract you from your performance. But if something directly happens to break you from your task, like, one of your teammates may be able to do something, or if something happens to like a family member in the audience, that could distract you. But just their presence may not necessarily distract you in and of itself. And we'll close with the concept of social loafing. Again, this is related to some of the things we talked about with group work, for example. That there are some group performances where we can see what each individual contributed to the group. But if there's a situation where you can't see who did what, there might be a greater tendency to loaf. So in that project, Ron, if the teacher can't tell, like if all of y'all are gonna be graded the same way, no matter what each individual did, people are more likely to loaf. If it's graded like, okay, look, y'all are gonna be graded as a group, but I need to see, okay, what did you do, Ron? What did you contribute, Jakira? What did you contribute, Maisha? And your grade will be based upon that. People will be more likely to kind of, make their individual contributions a lot more overt. So social loafing happens when it's not known who's going to get the credit or who's going to get the blame. If I ask y'all to like, hey, create a new COVID vaccine for me, and y'all working it as a team, but you get paid based upon your contribution, that's going to create a different result. So again, keep in mind, right, as leaders, you all are going to be organizing and running groups yourselves at some point. So you often want to give a lot of thought to the incentive structure that you create, because the incentive structure that the professor creates, Ron, that determines a lot about how hard people are going to work on a given assignment. So yeah, most group projects where it's not known who did what, overwhelmingly you're going to get social loafing. In a relay race, Shakira. Again, we are timing, like again, we time in a group, but we're timing an individual, so we can see who the loafer is, right? We can see who this slowpoke is that brought the whole team down. I was watching the Higher Learning the other day, and Morris Chestnut got pissed off at Omar Epps, because Omar Epps was a slow leg. He's like, man, we was winning. Then when we gave you the baton, dog, all of a sudden we was losing. So everybody else is holding theirs up. What's up with you? So in group situations like that, there's going to be more pressure on the individuals, Ron, to step their games up. We'll leave it there for now, and we'll continue with this discussion on Thursday.